All right, yo, what's going on, everyone? I absolutely need to tell you about what went down yesterday on First Take because it was genuinely one of the most shocking and relationship-ending discussions about the Brandon Ayuk situation with the San Francisco 49ers, placing him on the reserve-turned-left team list after Kyle Shanahan admitted we haven't seen him in about a month, and Pat McAfee being absolutely stunned by how a player who signed a 4-year, $120 million contract with $76 million guaranteed, $30 million per year, has completely disappeared into witness protection, making himself ineligible to return this season that I've witnessed all season long. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, Dan Orlovsky, and the entire panel spent nearly 4 hours meticulously dissecting McAfee's shocked reaction to discovering Ayuk essentially quit on the 49ers. The contract details showing the Niners voided his 2026 guarantees worth about $25 million, and Ayuk isn't even fighting this, with the NFLPA suggesting he wants no part of being a Niner any longer. The dead cap implications showing pre-June vert release creates $29. $6 million dead cap hit versus post-June vert being only $8.3 million in 2026, but still $21. $2 million in 2027. The fact that Ayuk was a homegrown player drafted in 2020 who got better every year, posting back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2022, 2023, becoming an All-Pro in 2023 at a position with elite competition, the contract negotiation blame game where, yes, the Niners may have mishandled things, but they still paid him, and he remained unhappy, refusing trades to Cleveland and New England, then acting petulant and immature, getting undressed on the practice field in front of Shanahan. Bruce Arians' warning that the grass isn't always greener, and Ayuk might regret leaving one of the best-run organizations in sports, with worldwide brand recognition, and most explosively, Peter Schrager calling Shanahan's admission chilling, while expressing genuine concern about Ayuk's mental health and personal well-being, wondering if he's okay with bad eggs in his circle, potentially influencing poor decisions, and the way they methodologically evaluated everything from how this situation escalated so quickly after signing to the cryptic Instagram posts that nobody can decipher to what the offense could look like with both Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall healthy as man coverage beaters, with elite route running to why the 49ers at 10-4 with playoff spot clinched and realistic shot at NFC's #1 seed desperately miss his all-pro production, to the organizational philosophy questions about whether Kyle Shanahan advocating to pay Ayuk, then watching him quit, represents failure, to the inevitable conclusion that Ayuk will be playing elsewhere in 2025, had everyone in the studio absolutely mesmerized, because this isn't just about a contract dispute. This is about a homegrown all-pro talent who earned his money becoming a hated figure through immaturity and bad advice, while the 49ers must eat significant dead cap money, making this one of the most disastrous contracts in franchise history, despite gaining $26 million in 2026 cap space and $80+ million total over the remaining years. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump in, let me ask you something that takes 1 second. That like button? Hitting it right now helps this channel more than you know. It's how we reach thousands more fans with this content. Just smash that like button real quick. It's the biggest way you can support what we're building here. Every like matters, so hit it now. So First Take opens, and Stephen A. Smith has this absolutely stunned intensity, like he's about to discuss one of the strangest player situations in NFL history. And Stephen A. immediately establishes that coming up, they're going to discuss what Pat McAfee and NFL insider Peter Schrager had to say about the Brandon Ayuk situation. And Stephen A. talks about how he was on YouTube and saw this thumbnail on the Pat McAfee show, wondering what McAfee had to say about this shocking situation. And like many Niner fans, Pat McAfee was very surprised by all of this and how it's gotten to this point where it seems Ayuk is no longer going to be a Niner. And Stephen A. makes this point that after last season going into 2024, Ayuk had signed a 4-year, $120 million contract worth $76 million in guaranteed money and $30 million per year. So how did things become so tumultuous so quickly? And Stephen A. keeps emphasizing McAfee was stunned. Unprecedented situation. How did it get here? Making it abundantly clear, this is shocking even to media personalities. Shannon Sharpe, who's always been incredibly vocal about contract situations, immediately jumps in explaining what caught McAfee's attention. And Shannon talks about how McAfee admitted he hadn't really understood or knew what was going on between Ayuk and the Niners before the move San Francisco made with their roster on Saturday. And Shannon explains that on Saturday, the 49ers placed Ayuk on the left team reserve list, which is something he'd never even heard of before because it's very rare for a player to just leave a team, not show up, not be seen or heard from during the season. And Shannon makes this critical distinction that this isn't a situation like Vontae Davis leaving mid-game or Antonio Brown storming off the field, taking his jersey off, walking shirtless into the tunnel. Brandon Ayuk is pretty much in the witness protection program. And Shannon reads Kyle Shanahan's quote from Sunday saying, "We haven't seen him in about a month, so he forced us to make a move where we had to place him on this left team reserve list because we don't know what's going on with him. And by doing that, this makes Ayuk ineligible to return this season." And Shannon keeps saying, witness protection program. Shanahan hasn't seen him, forced the team's hand, making it clear Ayuk completely disappeared. Dan Orlovsky then provides the bizarre detail about Ayuk's cryptic Instagram post, and Orlovsky talks about how, while the Niners haven't seen Ayuk nor heard from him, on Monday, December 15th, Ayuk did break his silence posting on Instagram with this caption that nobody can understand. And Orlovsky reads the post word for word, saying, "On a E-Way V truck. Even though it's a BP, I still play the rear view mirror. My wrist to PPPC Felipe, same price, Richard Mille." And this was the caption under an Instagram photo where Ayuk partnered with his car brand. And Orlovsky makes this plea, asking if anybody can translate that because he has absolutely no idea what message Brandon Ayuk is trying to pass along. And obviously, over time, Ayuk has had lots of cryptic posts about the Niners and being unhappy with San Francisco. And Orlovsky keeps emphasizing cryptic, incomprehensible posts can't decipher the message, pattern of unhappiness, making it clear communication has broken down completely. But then, Stephen A. Smith addresses what McAfee found most stunning, which is the contract voiding. And Stephen A. talks about how what McAfee is also stunned by, and what's surprising to everyone, is that the Niners voided Ayuk's 2026 guarantees, meaning he's losing about $25 million, and Ayuk is not even fighting this with the NFL Players Association. And Stephen A. makes this critical assessment that this tells him Ayuk wants no part of being a Niner any longer, and in turn, he's pretty much quit on his team this year. The roster move means Ayuk is done as a Niner and will not be playing for San Francisco again. And Stephen A. explains that he knows the Niners remained hopeful maybe Ayuk would return this year and they'd see number 11 in a scarlet-red uniform again, but this relationship cannot be salvaged. It is broken, it's sad, and the relationship has been severed. And Stephen A. keeps saying, not fighting the voided guarantee, quit on the team, relationship irreparably broken, making it absolutely clear this is over. Shannon Sharpe then provides comprehensive breakdown of the contract and dead cap implications, and Shannon talks about how as far as the Ayuk contract details, pre-June 1st, if the Niners release or trade him in 2026, it's a $29.6 million dead cap hit. Post-June warrant, if they release or trade him, it's only $8.3 million dead cap hit in 2026. And Shannon explains that, but if you do release or trade him after June 1, it's still a $2 million dead cap hit in 2027. So either way, San Francisco is going to have to eat some money, and this has turned out to be a pretty disastrous contract for the organization. And Shannon makes this point that on the plus side, if you want to keep it positive, the Niners do open up about $26 million in 2026 cap space, and over the next few years it's kind of fluid, but the Niners are going to gain $80+ million or so in cap space over the remainder of Ayuk's contract, which he signed going into 2024. And Shannon keeps emphasizing dead cap disaster, have to eat money, but gain future flexibility, making it clear there are financial consequences both ways. Dan Orlovsky then makes what I thought was the most emotional assessment about how sad this situation is, and Orlovsky talks about how, as he alluded to, this is sad, it's a disaster. Ayuk was a homegrown player for the Niners drafted in 2020, who got better every year with San Francisco. And Orlovsky reads the progression showing back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2022 and 2023, and in 2023 he developed into an all-pro player at a position where there's a litany of elite wide receivers to choose from. And Orlovsky makes this passionate argument that Ayuk got to a point where he earned the contract the Niners gave him, and now you can blame San Francisco for this relationship spoiling and falling apart because of how they handled contract negotiation, and that's fine. And Orlovsky explains that contract negotiations, whether between him and Chat Sports bosses or anyone and their employer, can always get contentious. There's always back and forth, they can get messy, there's always an arm wrestling contest because both sides try to win the deal with the player wanting more and the company wanting to pay less. And Orlovsky keeps saying, homegrown all-pro, earned the contract, negotiations get contentious, making it clear this started legitimately before going wrong. But then Stephen A. Smith places significant blame on Ayuk for how he handled everything. And Stephen A. talks about how even though the Niners may have made mistakes in how they handled contract negotiations with Ayuk, they still paid him and he was still unhappy. And Stephen A. makes this damning argument that the Niners had trades worked out with Cleveland and New England, but Ayuk didn't want to go there, which is kind of his fault, and it is his fault that he's been a petulant, immature baby since signing the deal, getting undressed on the practice field in front of Kyle Shanahan. And Stephen A. explains that Ayuk got the money he wanted. In fact, if the Niners signed him earlier in the offseason, he would have gotten less. And he couldn't get past that and be a team guy while also being paid. And Stephen A. makes this assessment that Ayuk has some really bad advice around him from his camp. And it's unfortunate how a homegrown player who became such a marquee player during great Niner seasons is now going from beloved to hated with a relationship that will never be repaired. And Stephen A. keeps emphasizing petulant and immature, bad advice around him, beloved to hated, making it clear Ayuk shares significant blame. Shannon Sharp then shifts to discussing Pat McAfee's broader point about what the offense is missing, and Shannon talks about how McAfee, like many people, said what a lot of us believe, that with this Niners team now being 10-4, with a win against the Colts clinching a playoff spot, and still realistically in the running for the #1 seed in the NFC, this offense has been really damn good since Brock Purdy came back, outside of the 3-interception first half against Carolina. And Shannon makes this observation, asking, can you imagine what the Niners' offense could look like with Brandon Ayuk, especially now that Ricky Pearsall is, of course, hurt, again re-aggravating the PCL and injuring his ankle. But if you got Ayuk and Pearsall on the field at the same time, there's a reason the Niners drafted Pearsall to team up alongside Ayuk. And Shannon explains that they looked at Debo as the odd man out, which ended up being true. Both Ayuk and Pearsall can beat zone and beat man, which is what happened to the Niners against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, where they couldn't beat press man. And Shannon keeps saying, offense missing his production. Ayuk and Pearsall would be elite, man coverage beaters, making it clear his absence hurts championship chances. Dan Orlovsky then discusses Bruce Arians' warning that appeared on McAfee's show. And Orlovsky talks about how Bruce Arians was on set alongside McAfee and said, yeah, this is an unfortunate situation, and Ayuk better be careful, because the grass ain't always greener on the other side. And Orlovsky explains that Ayuk might hate the Niners thinking they're an awful organization, but in reality, they're one of the best-run organizations in the sport, one of the most respected organizations. And their brand, if you care about team marketability and individual marketability, is one of the biggest worldwide brands in all of sports. And Orlovsky makes this point that the SF logo is famous and can be identified by anybody across the globe. When the NFL gained popularity in the 80s and 90s, the Niners were running the league, which is why there are Niner fans all across the world. And Orlovsky keeps emphasizing grass isn't greener, elite organization, worldwide brand recognition, making it clear Ayuk might regret leaving. But then, Stephen A. Smith addresses the most concerning aspect, which is Peter Schrager's mental health worry, and Stephen A. talks about how Peter Schrager was brought in and said, when Shanahan said on Sunday about not seeing Ayuk around for a month, quote, "It was chilling," and Schrager thinks chilling is a good journalistic word to use, and Stephen A. makes this assessment that he wouldn't call it chilling. He thinks the word to use is just kind of surprising and shocking, that it's gotten to a point where it's so strenuous that Ayuk just hasn't been seen around the facility for more than a month. And Stephen A. explains that Kyle Shanahan advocated for the Niners to pay Ayuk. He ran upstairs when they were about to trade him, saying, "Don't trade him, we can work out a deal." Shanahan was the one calling and designing plays for Ayuk to become the player he became. And Stephen A. reads Schrager's point, saying, "You want to make sure everybody here is okay. From a mental health and personal standpoint, are we sure Brandon Ayuk is okay? Because Schrager is a little worried about him and cares about him from afar." And Stephen A. keeps saying, Schrager is concerned. Mental health matters. Is Ayuk okay? Making it clear there's genuine worry beyond football. What really struck me watching this entire First Take segment was how Pat McAfee, being absolutely stunned by the Brandon Ayuk situation, exposed just how unprecedented this is, with a player who signed a 4-year, $120 million contract with $76 million guaranteed, completely disappearing into witness protection, with Kyle Shanahan admitting, "We haven't seen him in about a month," forcing the 49ers to place him on the reserve left team list, making him ineligible to return, and the Niners voiding his 2026 guarantees worth $25 million, with Ayuk not even fighting this with the NFLPA, proving he quit on the team and wants no part of San Francisco. And I think the clear consensus was that while contract negotiations can get contentious, and the Niners may have mishandled things, they still paid Ayuk what he earned as a homegrown All-Pro who posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. But his petulant, immature behavior, getting undressed on the practice field in front of Shanahan, refusing trades to Cleveland and New England, posting cryptic, incomprehensible Instagram captions nobody can decipher, and completely disappearing suggests bad advice from his camp, turning him from beloved to hated. And the dead cap implications create a disaster, with pre-June 1st release costing $29.6 million versus post-June 1 being $8.3 million in 2026. But still $21, $2 million in 2027. Though the Niners gained $26 million in 2026, cap space, and $80+ million total. But Bruce Arians' warning that the grass isn't greener, leaving one of the best-run organizations with worldwide brand recognition, combined with Peter Schrager's genuine mental health concerns asking, "Is Ayuk okay?" elevate this beyond football into human well-being territory. So what could have been an elite offense with Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall as man coverage beaters helping a 10-4 playoff team chase? The number 1 seed instead becomes a cautionary tale about how a homegrown All-Pro can self-destruct through immaturity and poor advice, while the organization must eat significant dead money, making this one of the most disastrous contract situations in 49ers history.